Welcome back to Razmafsar TV. As you know, all subscribers to my channel, my name is Manusher Moshtaq Khorasani, and many people ask me for this video specifically to give a short introduction about myself. I have published 8 books. Seven of them are related to arms and armor, historical arms and armor. I won 3 major book prizes, 2 world book prizes of Iran, and 1 book prize, museum prize of Czech Republic, because I analyzed the museum inventory of antique arms and armor in Znojmo Museum. I have published more than 180 articles. Approximately 150 of them are academic and peer-reviewed journals, academic articles in peer-reviewed journals. And I have been working for different museums and private collections. My area of research is Iranian arms and armor, but not only. I also published on Japanese, Chinese, Ottoman, Arab, and other arms and armor. So historical arms and armor. And I'm also a martial arts instructor and a historical martial arts instructor, which provides me of a real knowledge of the usage of weapons next to academic analysis of them. And I believe this is extremely important when you analyze historical arms and armor, because no matter what type of arms and armor you analyze, even if they are ceremonial, so-called ceremonial ones, they were meant to have the right balance. This is the point which some people who never practice martial arts or who do not cooperate with martial artists sometimes fail to understand. Today, I'm going to talk about akinake or akinakes, which is currently on exhibition in Getty Museum in Los Angeles, I believe, United States of America. I prepared some slides on it and going to share my opinion on it because many people ask me. And let me just say, this is in Getty Museum. And in the exhibition, Ancient Iran and the Classical World. First of all, I would like to give praise and also kudos to all organizers of such an important exhibition in Los Angeles. This is an excellent work which my colleagues have done, and now it is presented to the public. There, a golden akinakes is presented as part of the exhibition. And as you can see from Easy Reader and Peninsula News, you see this beautiful picture of this akinake, which is currently, as I said, on exhibition. And the exhibition is titled Ancient Iran and the Classical World. I was contacted by many Iranians specifically because I have heard that on social media, Iranian social media, many sites, specifically on Instagram, there were heated discussions about whether some people doubted whether it is real or not real, and so on. Please, before we go ahead, let me just mention one thing. Analyzing antique arms and armor, specifically, any type of weapons and armor, cannot be done just if you are not a researcher of arms and armor, if you have not handled hundreds and thousands of pieces of arms and armor, cannot be done just by looking at images. That's the first thing. And the second thing I would like to say, and I would like to stress that Getty Museum and our colleagues there are qualified people, and I'm not saying that in museums mistakes cannot happen, but this is something which we need to take into account before we go ahead. So I'm going to take this apart and discuss different parts of this akinake or akinakes and go ahead from there. The first thing when you have an antique, of course, if this is excavated or not excavated, right? Let's say my area of research for as far as Iranian arms and armor is concerned, is from the Copper and Bronze Age to the end of the Qajar era. Of course, if we have from Safavid, Timurid period, then the question for us is always provenance. Where do they come from? Military Museum of Tehran, Sadabad complex, Shiraz, Bandar Anzari, all I analyzed, they come from Nasruddin Shah Qajar collection, which were then handed generation to generation in the military academy, Danishgaheh Afsari, and then later on distributed in Iran after the revolution, I believe. So this is a provenance. And when you talk about any antique, right, if it's excavated or not excavated, is the provenance. Now, provenance is what? In museums, if something is excavated, be it from Achaemenid, Sassanid, is ancient times, this excavation is legal, then they end up in museum, like in Iran Bostan Museum, like in Louvre Museum, or they are purchased items. So what are these purchased items? Purchased items in the West, for example, there are renowned, let's say, auction houses like Sotheby's, like Christie's, Bonhams, and so on and so on. And then you have a provenance. This was from, for example, collection of Johnson or Johnson's collection, which was then sold again in Christie's or Sotheby's exhibition. So in the West, right, let's say in Europe and North America, United States, Australia, there is a cooperation between museums and major private collections. And in my humble opinion, that's very good. The thing is, because museums do not have the funds to take care of all these antiques. But of course you can come. Like some of our colleagues already, like Muscarella a couple of years ago, heavily criticized this system because they said it could lead, and I agree with them, to some illegal excavations of some items. And we all know how terrible these illegal excavations are and what kind of terrible networks operate in that area. But then, no matter what, we need to establish the provenance. Well, I analyze in my book, Arms and Armor from Iran, 3 akenakai or akenakes, which are kept in Iran Bostan Museum or National Museum of Iran. And then I know that this is golden akenakes with golden blade. And there is another gold, you will see it here, another akenakes with golden blade, which is cut in 2, I think, during when it was found by an agricultural machine, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And it's kept in Metropolitan Museum of Art. And back then I heard there are one or two golden akenakes which are kept in private collections. I never established and never understood who it was, but a leading auction house told me that back then. And now we have one of them which came, to the light. And this is, I'm not so sure about it again. I do not cooperate with Getty Museum, so I just the information I collected. I believe, maybe I'm wrong, this is Akinakis, is from the Wyvern collection. If it is true, which this information is on the internet, it is a private collection that started in 1988 with the purchase of an Italian marble lion and has quickly expanded to be one of the most significant private collections of medieval sculpture in the world. And please remember, if this is Wyvern collection, again, there are also many books published on this collection. And then this collection also gave many items of the collection. The collector gave for exhibitions to Victoria and Albert Museum and Bowdoin College and so on and so on. You can search on it. So again, I'm not sure about that. I have not cooperated with Getty Museum. That's the information I found on the internet. But establishing provenance is important. If this item comes from a major private collection, private collections and major private collections have advisors of consultants from big auction houses. Now, I'm not saying everything auction houses sell are real. They can also be, excuse me to use this expression, taken in or fooled. And but chances that there is a filtering system for that is already big, especially for high-end, especially for a major collection like Wyvern collection. That being said, let me talk about the lengths. Well, I do not know the length, but for those of you who want to look at these akinakes, please try to establish the length of it. The length of akinakes varies from 20 centimeters to 60 and sometimes even more to 70, which, these are from an article which I have written. It means that even longer swords were made following the same patterns. Based on an analysis of sample of 2,100 akinakai, Topal, who has published extensively in akinakes, divides these swords into daggers with the blade length up to 20 centimeters, short swords with a length of 20 to 30 centimeters, and average swords with a length of 30 to 40 centimeters. And even long swords with the length of 40 to 70, and extra long swords with the length of over 70 centimeters. That's what I said just in the beginning. It's not only 60, what Labudinsky says, but 70 centimeters, we have it as well, or even longer. So we need to establish, if you compare Achaemenid akenakai to Scythian akenakai, Achaemenid ones tend to be bulkier, wider, tend to be, and shorter. I mean, compared. They are also longer, and so we have them as well. But my apologies, I had some issues with the sound system here. That's why I had to get out my microphone. I hope it's still working. So, so when we come here, Topal distinguishes between different lengths of akinakai, such as Clermès type akinakai, which is divided into three major classes: 25 centimeters, 25 to 35 centimeters, and 35 to 55 centimeters. So we need to establish its length. Again, back before I was distracted by this warning of my computer, akinakai or akinakes, the Achaemenid are shorter and wider in general, and Scythian, they have shorter ones, but also very long ones. So we need to establish the length of it. The second thing regarding the blade, there are heated discussions regarding that on some Iranian forum, and then some people said, well, how could it be that everything is in gold? But then again, the blade is, we have only remnants of the blade. Don't look at here in the beginning, explain what it is. The blade is of iron. They said, why is the blade of iron? If this is gold, this should be like the one, refer to the one I analyzed in my book, which is in Iran Bastan Museum, or also in Mat and other museums. It should be gold. But it is not true. The iron blade of this example is broken off, and there are two types of blades. Let me just talk about the blade, then we come back to the iron. And why? It's because there are akinakes, I'm going to show you, with gold or gold-plated handle over wood and golden scabbard with iron blade, and there are many of them Scythian excavated in Russia or in Ukraine. But let me just talk about the shape of it. We do not have the complete blade here. We have only remnants of it. So, but let me just say, even from the remnants of it, if you are a blade analyst, you could imagine possibly what it could have ended. But let me just go ahead here. There are two types of blades. One sword type has a blade with an elongated triangular shape, right? And converging edges. The other type had parallel edges. The first one, which I mentioned is here. If you come and take a look at here, is this one, like a triangular shape. Parallel edge, I'm going to show it to you. Those blades with parallel edges are less frequent and could be found in 6th to 5th centuries, according to Labudinsky. So they're older. Topal explains that most early Scythian akinakai have a parallel edged blade, so he agrees with him. And by the end of the same period, the blade has a narrow, elongated triangular shape like this one. Look at this. The existence of parallel edges and a median rib on the blade is a characteristic feature of the Clermès type, which is a type of Scythian akinakes. But there are also single-edged akinakai from Transylvania and the Great Hungarian Plate. I have not seen in Iran or in Achaemenid period, but single-edged also existed. There are Hungarian complexes with single-edged swords of the Novgorod type. These include burials of Grongos and Tarpa and close to Batmonostor, but that's not an issue for us here. Let me just go ahead. Blade material, as I mentioned that, the Scythian akinakai from Ukraine and those from Northern Caucasus are generally made of iron. These two you see, this is from Iran Bastan Museum, is almost parallel edge, you see, not like this triangular. And this is excavated in Persepolis, right? It's also, I analyzed it and measured it in my book. And this is another akinakai, which is kept in an European museum, is Achaemenid. You see that is a more triangular shape. So when we come back here, there are also older examples made of bronze, and even there are bimetallic examples. So older ones were also made of bronze. There we have the akinakai made of them. And we have also bimetallic, right? Means handle made of gold or bronze, and then, or gold leaf over wood, and then iron blade and so on. The production of Scythian bimetallic sword handles dates to pre-Scythian technology of Sumerian scheme that is a pre-Scythian technology. We have also golden blades in ceremonial akinakai, as I mentioned that. So, to make it short, just because everything is in gold, and I also read one of our colleagues, a doctor, I don't remember his name, said there are remnants of wood in here, and also then iron. Of course, because they did not put, that's what I meant, you need to be a weapon analyst. They did not put a golden leaf directly over iron because it will bite into that. They have an iron, and on this tank, iron, right? They put wood, and then they put golden leaf. Now, he said the remnants of wood. This is a very, very good indication. Normally, we do not try to reveal all this information we use to distinguish between fake and real ones, genuine ones, but this, because it's hot, heated discussions, I need to mention that remnants of wood are good because normally people who fake don't go to that detail first. And second, wood, could we do it like carbon analysis for that? If we want, just think about that. Because in contrast to metals, wood can be used for other types of analysis. I'm just giving some insight for our colleagues who want from Getty Museum or from this private collection, if they want to do analysis on that. But so far, remnants of wood is a good, very good indication. So we come here, back to what people said. Some people said, why is this is not made of gold? If it is real, why is it not made of gold? Please look at that. These are, as I'm going to show, Scythian akinakai from Ukraine and Russia, and so on. We'll show more from Hermitage Museum. I mean, I was in Russia, talked to all colleagues in Hermitage. I know many of them personally, right? Researchers from St. Petersburg. And you can see, also, I know many colleagues from Ukrainian museums, they have excavated akinakai. Not that they are just illegally found or excavated, legal excavation, archaeological excavations, and many of them are Provenance. And look at that, they have iron blade, golden handle, and golden also scabbard. So this is not a reason to say this cannot be a real one, right? Just to have this also into in mind and to take into consideration. If you go to the shape of the scabbard is extremely interesting. The scabbard shapes have different shapes, and some show zoomorphic elements, right? A large number of bronze shapes of Caucasian akinakai are in the shape of a highly stylized bird's hat from the early Scythian period. These are described as stylized as the bird's beak and eyes display certain realistic features, whereas the ending is shaped as a ringed ledge, right? So this is, we are going to take a look at that. Please look at this, what we have here, like a goat, like an animal, and lotus is the the horns or the ears like a lotus flower. And look at this. This is an achaemenid scabbard shape made of ivory and is kept at National Museum's Liverpool. It was purchased at Sotheby and Co auction house, and therefore it is not an excavated item, but again, Sotheby, right? It is attributed to Malik Tapper. It depicts the head of a bull that has stylized lotus bloom, right, instead of horns on one side. The measurements of the piece are given 5.4 centimeters times 4.1 centimeters times 1.2 centimeters. So National Museum's Liverpool website, you can go see that. Now, please take a look at that. And I'm going to tell you something. Do you see the differences here? Do you see that they do not follow a pattern? Okay, let me just say that. One good thing about Pulad Gohardar, right? The patterned crucible seal from Safavid period, Timurid period, or Afsharid period is you cannot fake it. No one up to date could have produced beautiful patterns of that. So we have an easier game to play when we want to analyze that. Even if they do, even if they try to make made of patterned crucible seal, they make normally knife. No one can make it from that type of hard seal in real shamshir shape. If they make it, then the whole let's say shape is not correct, then the balance is not correct. We have many things to distinguish a real shamshir blade from a newly one. And if you even make a newly one made of patterned crucible steel, you can never imitate the pattern, the balance. But even if you could, then the process will be so expensive that it's actually it's not worth it actually to fake, right? Gold is a different thing. I understand gold is not the process of making, of patterned crucible steel is extremely hard, and gold is expensive elements, material. We know that, metal, but you need to see that. Normally, when they fake something, it looks very perfect. It doesn't look like this, right? It doesn't look like it is that there are some things which do not follow a pattern. And look at, for example, you look at the different sizes of them. Look at that. And look at how these grooves are made. You see that? This is not a machine made, but this is that by hand. No. Did they make it by a casting? Or did they later on engrave it? Whatever they did, this is not done by a machine. It follows a pattern. Now, I'm not saying, okay, it is 100%, but I just want to take this into account. And now, someone who is going to fake something normally has some, tries to imitate some existing patterns. Let me just go here. This is from an akinakai I analyzed in my book. This is from National Museum of Iran Boston Museum. Also gold, wooden scabbard, golden scabbard shape. Look at that lotus flower as the horn and of the goat or whatever, right? Or the bull or whatever you want to call it, right? And look at this. And look, there is no imitation made or try to, for example, imitate the same number. This is an individualistic style. This is another good sign. Look at this is from Talar Shora, Assembly Hall in Persepolis. And look at this. This is an akenakai which is depicted on stone. Look at this eye. Look at this. Again, a faker always tries to serve some models which are famed and known. Look at that. You see this? I'll give you another one from Talar Shora. Look. Okay, let's start here. You see that? Very different. Look, again. Look, you see? Only here we see this pattern is repeated here, not the same. Basic structure, not the same. But then, the lotus flower is different, representing the horns. The face is here choppier, but here, okay, this face is an elongated one like this one. I just want to take this into consideration. And we also have shapes, scabbard shapes of, again, from Assembly Hall, Tolar Shora, which are not decorated. There are many models, but I just wanted you to see some. Look at this one as well, from Tolar Shora. So this is the scabbard shape. Please look at the individualistic style of these different scabbard shapes on stone, engraved on stone, carved ivory, chased metal. We go to the handle. The handle of it is also very interesting. Let me start that. The handle could have longitudinal grooves, right? And some have horizontal grooves similar to Achaemenid akinakai, kept in the National Museum of Akinakis, kept in the National Museum of Iran, which I analyzed. Longitudinal grooves are a characteristic feature of the posmus type of akinakis. The existence of a bite or opening on the handle is typical of early Scythian swords and daggers. The reasons for having a bite on the handle of the early akinakai has not been clarified yet, although there are different ideas, and such as the bite was used to attach a type of sword knot to the wrist of the swordsman so that he would not lose it upon impact. And the very existence of a bite together with a bimetallic handle also indicates an early akinakis according to Topal. And certain features in the morphology of the handle of Scythian akinakai also serve for the determination of an approximate dating among researchers. For instance, researchers consider a round or oval cross-section of the handle as an early characteristic feature. On the other hand, they considered a flattened handle with ringed ornamentation typical of later weapons, okay? So another distinguishing feature is that the length of the handle decreases over time, so we need to know the length of this, and the straight hilts tend to be more curved. By the end of the early Scythian period, the hilts of akinakai became more massive and rounded. On the other hand, the pommels become thin and elongated. Now, you might ask yourself, why am I always comparing it to Scythian akinakai? The reason is we have many excavated items. You saw that over 2,100, and also not excavated, compared to very few Achaemenid akenakes or parts of akenakes swords, which are in museums. Okay, we have reliefs in police. We can compare. That's why I make these comparisons. Look at this. This is from National Museum of Iran, Bastan, Akinakai. Here you see the grooves are horizontal. And then there is a middle line, which is left like that. The same like here. Here is just like, this is not horizontal. This is not vertical. This is like diagonal, right? But you see the same pattern is almost followed. But again, with individualistic characteristics. And here in the middle, look at this. Here it has one. Before you say, oh, look, it is different. It didn't imitate the famed one in National Museum of Iran. But look at that. This almost, we have it on one of Persepolis akenakes. But this is, vertical lines in contrast to this two. This horizontal and this is diagonal. Now, if you compare this handle to pure gold akenakes, these pure gold akenakes normally have much more elaborated handle. You see, this is a bulky handle. These are these knobs, so it doesn't slip. And there are these beautiful lines on top of it. And you have these goats here serving as a guard. Completely different. I mean, different, right? Not completely different. Excuse me. But we have from Hermitage Museum, hilt of an akinakis from 5th to 4th century of lower Dnieper region near Nikopol. So if you take a look at that, you see that the handle is also like this one. It's straight, right? But if you come to akinakai of Kellermes type of Republic of Moldova, look at that, they have also vertical lines, you see? So it didn't imitate just what is readily on the market, and normally fakers do that. And again, we have these horizontal lines. These are akinaka of Nograd type. This is Topals and also Vago and Boronchik and Angel, right? So you see from handles of single-edged akinakai. This, remember, look at this, and I just go back. Remember that? Look this. And this is an akinakes that was found at Mount Mamai in the Ukraine in 2019. It dates from the 6th century BC. And Hermitage internet page, and you can go and see. You see that it has horizontal lines, double horizontal lines, and in the middle it's a zigzag type, right? Like a snake. And this is, do you remember I showed you an excavated akinakes in the beginning? There are two types of akinakes shown on Persepolis. One is that you hang it with this ear-shaped scabbard, and one you tuck, and the ones you tuck have a different handle, and then they don't have a shape in the scabbard. And researchers, some of them call them both akinakes. I do as well. And some say, no, one is akinakes with, like Lobedinsky says, which has a shape and which is at the scabbard ear, and the other one is a traditional dagger, which in my humble opinion doesn't make sense to call it that way. But you see that this type of akinakes, which was excavated in Persepolis and is in National Museum of Iran Boston Museum, has this handle, not that handle. You see that? Okay, it has some inlays over, like over the handle, and they are missing now, of course, because they were decayed, but the shape is almost the same. You see that? Almost. Okay, it has like this, but you see that. This is different. We go to pommel. The pommel mostly resembles a horizontal bar or a volute in the shape of stylized horns or zoomorphic motifs. Look at this one, right? You saw that already. Topal and Golek think that the narrow elongated pommel is an indication for an early type of akinakes, okay? The forms of pommels vary in style. The pommels can have the following shapes. Examples of the pommel resembling a simple horizontal bar, 6th century BC. Pommels resembling a volute, 5th to 4th centuries. Examples that have an oval or a round pommel, 4th to 3rd centuries. There are also examples of pommels of Achaemenid akinakes that resemble bull proteomes from Musée de Louvre Museum, right? Look at this. This is the case I wanted to mention, that from Louvre Museum. It represents double bull protomes, and right, and its dimensions are 2.7 times 2.5 centimeters times 2.5 centimeters. Is right. This is a purchased item. Excuse me, I wrote it here. Shape's not a shape. It's just the top of the handle, right? And a purchase item that was acquired, right? The pommel that was acquired in 1898 and not an excavated. The handle. So we talked about the handle. So this is the handle, as you can see it here. We talked about it. And now we talk about the guards now. Something very interesting here. There are different types of guards. A guard resembling a reversed stylized heart placed upside down. A guard resembling a double mustache, like this one. You see that? It's like a mustache, double mustache. The point of contact between the guard and the blade looks like a triangular indentation. And the heart-shaped hilt is also described as kidney-shaped, referring to the fetish-felted type of akinakes. The term kidney-shaped hilt is also used to refer to the massive hilt of single-edged akenakai. Look at this again. The thing is, you see that this double mustache, which you see in this Getty Museum exhibited item, the one in Iran, Boston Museum, doesn't have that. And this one doesn't have that as well, because it has two goats. You see that? It doesn't have this double mustache. This was the first thing which really surprised me first when I looked at it. But when I did research, this is this reverse heart. Do you remember? Either it looks like a reverse heart. If you turn it, it's looked like a heart, right? Or double mustache, right? So this one, which you can see it here, is an akinakes or akinakai that was found at Mount Mamai in Ukraine in 2019. It dates from the 6th century BC, right? So heart, reversed heart, or double mustache. But now look at this one from Hermitage Museum. Two important things. It has a double mustache. I believe that it was, look at this, before I go out, please. Health of an Akinakis. This is here. You see that also it's, look at this now again. Iron blade from Hermitage Museum. It was found in the right bank of lower Dnieper region near Nikopol, right? And look at this, it has a collar piece. Look at this, and it has a collar piece. You know what a collar piece is? Not all akinakis have it, but both of them have it. One which was found in the right bank of lower Dnieper region near Nikopol, and some people say it might be an Achaemenid one, which you see here, or definitely Scythian, but the same structure you see. And also, okay, the handle is different, right? On top of it, again, is different. They were not, please, back then, each item, each Shamshir during Safavid period is a unique item. Each akinakis is a unique item. You cannot say, oh, it differs from the mass to things we have, so it's fake. No, you cannot analyze weapon that way. It was not military issue weapon, which we had in military in European armies, again in the 18th, 19th century. In medieval European armies, the weapons did not resemble, I mean, okay, general shape were the same, but each one was individually made, right? Not machine made. So again, and it has color piece. The color piece, excuse me, made of gold, I was distracted. Make sure that the handle and the color piece holds the blade, and once you put it into the scabbard, make sure that the blade does not have direct contact with the scabbard. This color piece is called habaki in Japanese swords, like in katana, in wakizashi, or in tanto. Yes, tanto is in Japanese terminology also short sword, medium-sized sword, wakizashi, and long sword, and katana, and very long tachi, right? And this color piece is tunku in Chinese. Right, and this one again, as I mentioned, that see, it has a double mustache and a collar piece. Collar piece. Again, if you take a look at that, this one is a reversed heart, I would call it, right? And the handle of a Scythian golden akenakis from 350 to 335 BC. Place of finding was again Dnieper region near Nikopol. Again, in Hermitage Museum. We go to scabbard mouths now. Now it gets very interesting. The scabbard mouths on this type, you remember there were two. The one which was tucked had like the half circle ones, and you tuck in the mouth, but this one. The scabbard mouth had an ear. This is the scabbard ear, as you can see it here, with a hole, right? It was used to pass a cord through it so that the sword could be suspended from the belt. Three factors should be taken into consideration regarding this type of suspension system. This suspension system makes the scabbard, the sword, hang diagonally, pointing the scabbard shape forward on the right side of the body, as I mentioned it in an earlier video on this channel. It has a similar suspension system as the traditional Caucasian dirks from the 18th to 20th century. In contrast to the Sakas, the Medes and the Persians, the lower part of the scabbard by Scythians was not attached with an additional cord to the thigh. You see that Achaemenids did it. An akinakis from Calameris, Russia, dated to the 7th century BC, has an accessory resembling a key without the key bed that serves to stop the suspension cord, which is a rare feature. There are rare examples with two suspension systems, as I will show it to you. Let me just, for example, show it to you very fast. Let me see. This one, two suspension systems. They exist as well, but we will come back to it later. Please let me just go ahead. Didn't want to go very fast. Yeah, this is a sword of the Solocha Kogan and the statue of Mariupol. It is a prototype of the scabbard system that appeared on nomad sabers centuries later. You see that also Sassanids imitated that and put it on late Sassanid swords. Astonishingly, the sword of Soloja has only a hole in the upper suspension system. It could be that the lower suspension system was attached by a perishable material that has been lost today. The so-called Gudermes dagger discovered near Stopmoy, right, in Russia, also had remains of a wooden scabbard. Okay, so this one. Now, this is the scabbard mouth of an akinakes, right? This is part of metal here, and then also over wood. It's a combination of metal, which is broken, as you can see it here, and over wood. Okay, see that? Almost the same structure. You can find it on Tachar, also in Persepolis, many of these type of scabbards. You see that? How it's hanging from the belt here. You see, look at this. This is going to accept, that's the interesting thing, the double mustache into it. But you see, this one doesn't have a double mustache, like this. You see that? This is actually resembles a reverse heart, right? But don't think that this is only there to accept the double mustache. You see, it's not the case here. Same here, okay, it's corroded, right? But look at this one. This is very interesting. The famous, and it's a boar head, boar's head sword and scabbard from burial Mount Kurgan, close to the village of Velika Bilioserka in Ukraine. It is dated to circa 330 BC, Hermitage Museum. You see, almost the same concept. But it is bulkier, round, right? This is Achaemenid, like this one, like this one. But this one is a Scythian. They look different. These are elongated. And look at this one as well, a golden akinakes that the Dutch had to return to Ukraine as it was a stolen item. The age is a bit unclear, probably from roughly 400 BC. I would like to thank my colleagues from University of Kiev who also did an extensive research on that and put them on the website. Go and please check University of Kiel and Akinakis, and you will find all these beautiful items there. And we can hear a scabbard mouth of a Scythian golden akinakes from 350 to 325 BC from Dnieper region near Nikopol, also from Hermitage. You see, here's the hole. Here's the hole. It's for hanging. Get this beautiful Greek influence and the Persian influence and Scythian and all these beautiful things. You can see it here. And look at this one here. The scabbard mouth of a Scythian golden akinakes from the 7th century Dnieper area, Hermitage Museum, St. Petersburg, Russia. Another one, Scythian, scabbard mouth of a Scythian golden akinakes from 350 to 325, Dnieper region near Nikopol, Hermitage Museum. You see how decorated they are? I also read people said, oh, this is too decorated, too much decorated. Look at the items in Hermitage. No one can, are as well. But I will come back to it. And a scabbard mouth of a Scythian golden akinakes, another one from Hermitage. Let's go to the scabbard as a whole. The scabbards were generally made of wood and covered with leather. The representations of akinakes on Greco-Scythian objects, because you see also lots of Greek images on some Scythian akenakai of art, show different decorative elements on the scabbard. And then also here, this is from Oxus. Finds of Oxus, you see that? It's also decorated much. You see that? This is Achaemenid, the same chubby one, right? The golden akinakes that the Dutch had to return to Ukraine as it was a stolen item. The age is a bit unclear, as I said. That's the whole scabbard. You see that the Scythian akenakai, they don't have this shape. Not all of them, most of them don't have this shape, as you can see here, as Achaemenid Persian ones did. But then again, there were two types of Achaemenid ones. Remember, watch the other video of Akinakis where they tucked in front of their belly. That doesn't have this shape. That looks like this one, right? But in the Scythian, is like, if you want to compare it to Achaemenid types, the scabbard is a combination of this type and that one which is tucked, because look at it is slender. But then again, talking about, oh, too much decoration here. Some people said, oh, how could it be real? Look at the decoration here. Look at the decoration on this one, the famous Scythian boar
boar's hat. Do you remember that one? Sword and scabbard stands from Burial Mountain, Kurgan, close to the village of Velika, below Serka, Ukraine. Dated to circa 330 BC. Look at this one, again from Hermitage Museum, scabbard mouth and a scabbard of a Scythian golden akinakes from this place of finding Dnieper region near Nikopol. Look at that, also highly decorated. Same here. Remember we said some of them have two scabbard fittings, and this one, which come later in, you know, how far we had that back then. But again, highly decorated. The back of this one in Getty Museum has inscriptions. I'm not going to go through them, which is written in 3 languages, the name of Ardashir, I was told. But remember, some people say, oh, the person who wrote it did not consider the distance between these or whatever. Let me tell you something about the inscription. When you analyze inscriptions, again, on Pulad Gohardar, writing, the way they write Amal Asadullah, Amal Karabay gold inlaying is much more difficult because Pulad Gohardar is an extremely tough material. And engraving on it, even if you do it before you harden and temper it, because hardening and tempering can change the pattern of steel, right? Or after. This is a mystery we have been doing research on. I'm not going into detail here. But one thing is for sure here. Please do not expect the same way of writing on metal. I am aware that writing on gold is much easier compared to writing on steel or even iron, right? Or even on copper and bronze. But remember, at the end of the day, is writing on metal. It is not like you are writing on a piece of paper. So take this also into consideration. One thing which is for me very interesting is this feature. Was it, I need to really to have it in my hand to look at it, if it was used to pass a cord. If it's true, that's very interesting. But this is something which we need to take into consideration. And look again, the individual the sizes of all these circles, and unbelievable. Okay. Let me just come back to it, to the whole piece. And I just tried to give you some insight to that. Just passing some judgment on a weapon based on some pictures you see, based on some assumptions you make, is not as easy as you think. Another thing which you need to take into consideration, but it takes, again, years of experience of handling different weapons. If the blade is intact, is the balance. Please go to my channel and see. I was the head of the project to coronation sword, St. Maurice, the so-called St. Maurice, or the Reichsschwert of Germany, coronation sword of kings from 10th, 11th century, to replicate it. So we had it made in the exact dimension as the original. The pommel of it and the guard of it are made of gilded silver. Of course, it's not used for fighting. It was for coronation. The blade of it is excellent blade. Even if you have a golden blade, which the golden akenakes are handled, it still has the right balance. Now you might ask, what is a balance? You measure balance, center of percussion. You measure this also a point of balance. And also the way is very, I know, subjective. It might come across to you subjective. In science, we need to be objective. Everyone comes to the same conclusion. But if you do not have martial arts experience and fighting experience with weapons and fencing experience, swordsmanship experience, how can you have that, right? And that's important. Now, unfortunately, when there are blades, next to all this analysis I did, and this is only preliminary, I hope my colleagues in Getty Museum are going to use it, and they're going to do analysis on the real thing, because it needs to be in your hands, right? But then again, balance is important, because it lacks a blade. Finding the balance the way we want to is not as easy. But still, even if there is a small part of the blade, the handle reveals, the way it sits in the hand reveals a lot about authenticity of a piece. When I saw this piece first, I immediately thought, okay, it has elements which I've never seen before, but you can see each element of it, either in existing akinakes, akenakai, in existing akinakes art, in comparable pieces, or on stone reliefs, and if not, on existing Scythian brothers of this, right? So there is not one single feature which does not exist in others. Then the question comes up for us. Why would someone who wants to fake something just simply, he could have followed the same pattern. Why would he go to some extent and make such a unique piece, right? Let me tell you one thing. You know, these myths, there was one Asadullah during Shah Abbas Safavid, but we have dated examples with best handwriting from Shah Suleiman Safavid, even from Nader Shah Afshar period, even from Zan period. Dated ones. Why did they date it? Think about that. Same comes here. To go to such an extent, to have different features coming here, and I've shown it to you. And also individual, look at all these individual animals depicted on it. You see that each one of them looks somehow different. Take these things into consideration as a starting point, and I hope in future, and then again, this was as a weapon analyst, my analysis of it, to give you some insight, something to work on, and I'm sure, and I can give you more. It was just a starting point. If you need more, let me know. I can go even more in detail. But again, I repeat, you cannot analyze a weapon the way you want just from pictures. If it were patent crucible steel, it would have made our job, my job, much easier, but it is not. But then again, please be careful before judging something very fast. You need to have experience in weapon analysis. Thank you very much, and I wish everyone a nice day, and see you soon.